Now for global business updates, we have Rotus Oddiri. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new week. We'll be saying goodbye to July in just a few days. What can we expect from this new week as we kick things off with Money Monday? The action actually starts on Tuesday. We're going to be seeing a lot of central bank decisions from the US, from the UK, from Japan, also earnings impacting the markets this week. So we kick things off with Microsoft. Microsoft is going to be releasing its fiscal fourth quarter earnings on Tuesday, and the markets are going to be looking for how much has Microsoft been spending on AI. Are they finally getting a return? You saw what happened last week when Alphabet released its earnings, and the markets reacted to what they thought was too much spending on AI, leading to questions of whether these tech companies are overvalued in terms of valuations for the stocks. Stock market, remember last week, fell to an 18-month low, the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy NASDAQ. So we saw a big sell-off last week, Wednesday. So could that happen this week? We'll see what happens with Microsoft and their fiscal fourth quarter earnings. To Wednesday, the central banks kick in. We've got the U.S. Federal Reserve rate decision. That's the FOMC, the Federal Open Markets Committee. Will they give a signal as far as September is concerned as to whether or not we'll get a rate hike? The markets are pricing in an 88% chance of a rate cut, not a rate hike. A 88% chance of a rate cut in September. You've seen the macroeconomic variables. Unemployment has climbed upwards. Inflation is cooling. So does this mean that the Fed, based on the data, could possibly give a signal on a rate cut in September? The Bank of Japan also providing some information with respect to rate direction. The yen has rebounded, but still, many are saying that they need to hike rates in Japan and narrow the spread between interest rates in the United States and interest rates in Japan. And we also get Meta's Q2 earnings also on Wednesday, much like Microsoft. Remember what happened to Mark Zuckerberg on the first quarter earnings, where he said they were going to be spending a lot of money on AI, and then the investors sold off on Meta stock. So similar story with Microsoft. We'll see what happens with Meta. Thursday, the Bank of England. We haven't heard much from authorities at the Bank of England because of the elections. They weren't allowed to speak and stuff like that. So the markets are pretty split on whether or not we'll get a rate hike. Remember, inflation has come down to the 2% target over in the UK. So what are we going to get from Andrew Bailey? We also get earnings from Apple, fiscal third quarter earnings, fiscal second quarter earnings from Amazon on Thursday. On Friday, US jobs for July. The markets are expecting about 177,000. We got about 207,000 in June. If we see the labor market cooling, inflation decelerating, unemployment rising, is that enough for the Fed to signal rate cuts? Let's move to technology now. JP Morgan says that its in-house version of ChatGPT can do the work of a research analyst. What does that mean for research analysts that are coming out of school right now? You probably want to get more skills, right? And what does this mean for asset managers, fund managers and the likes when it comes to, whether or not they even should be hiring, research analysts in the future. So again, we're getting to where the technology is getting more and more advanced and impacting different sectors like financial services. We stick with technology, moving to former US President Donald Trump. He spoke in Nashville, Tennessee over the weekend at the Bitcoin conference. Take a listen to what he said about what he would promise if he wins in November and what it means for Bitcoin.
Plan today, I am announcing that if I am elected, it will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. We'll keep 100%. I hope you do well, please. This will serve in effect as the core of the strategic national Bitcoin stockpile.
Now, his comments were very interesting, right? Because the U.S. has one of the largest holdings of Bitcoin currently, but most of those holdings, if not almost everything, are from assets that have been seized from cybercrime and the dark web and so on and so forth. And so, it'll be very interesting to see whether or not if Trump really does go forward with a quote-unquote strategic reserve for Bitcoin. Because, again, when you think about government's involvement in cryptocurrencies, the appeal of Bitcoin and crypto is that it's decentralized and it's not controlled by anyone. So it'll be very interesting to see how things work out there. Now, still on technology, take a look at this clip we're about to play. As we've talked about AI, we've talked about the threat of the deepfakes, especially during an election cycle. Take a look at this video that Elon Musk shared on his Twitter page or X page. It has the voice of Kamala Harris. It sounds like it's her speaking, but everything you're about to hear is completely fabricated.
I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility of debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant.
Now, here's the thing. Elon Musk, if you look at his tweets, when he posted the video, he just put a laughing emoji and said, "This is amazing." Didn't give any disclosure as to whether or not this was real or not. Now, the account where he got that from, which it calls itself Mr. Reagan, a conservative account, you will notice that it said that this is a parody. Can you imagine posting a deep fake of a presidential candidate saying things that are false, in the middle of an election? Can you imagine doing something like that in another country where an election is going on? So he's got a lot of pushback about that. We all know he has endorsed Donald Trump. This is something that has raised a lot of eyebrows with respect to Elon Musk's leanings and how he is using X to further his own agenda. Let's talk Hollywood. Hollywood, over the weekend, we saw the Marvel Cinematic Universe making history with its 34th movie, Deadpool and Wolverine. The movie this is an R-rated movie, by the way. It's the third in the Deadpool trilogy, but it's the first movie that introduces Deadpool to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it brings back Hugh Jackman, who, retired from playing Wolverine. $96 million earned on Friday, July the 26th. Highest single day earnings for an R-rated movie. It's a very violent film. Also, $205 million earned over the weekend. That is the 8th largest, or rather highest earnings domestically at the U.S. box office for a movie. Only about 9 movies in history have earned over $200 million on the opening weekend. Globally, the movie has earned about $438 million. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe is essentially the most successful franchise in U.S. box office history. So far, with the addition of this film now, it's earned about $30 billion from its first ever movie up until now. So they've made quite a bit of money. Also, Disney has a lot to be happy about. Disney owns the Marvel franchise. Disney already has a $1 billion movie on its books for this year, and that is Inside Out 2. And it has now become officially the highest grossing animated movie of all time, making $1.4 billion. So between this and Inside Out, Inside Out is from Pixar. Pixar, of course, owned by Disney. Disney also has the MCU. Disney is doing quite well in the movie business so far this year. Now we get to Nigeria. A lot happening in the oil and gas space. As you know, there has been a lot of we've had, of course, a fuel scarcity once more in Nigeria. And the NNPC is saying that essentially this fuel scarcity is due to a hitch. So if we take a look at the quotes from the NNPC's corporate comms head, he says here, the NNPC Limited wishes to state that the tightness in fuel supply and distribution witnessed in some parts of Lagos and the FCT is as a result of a hitch in the discharge operations of a couple of vessels. He also continues to say the company further states that it is working round the clock with all stakeholders to resolve the situation and restore normalcy in its operations. That's Olufemi Sonaye, who's the Chief Corporate Communications Officer at the NNPC. Still on oil and gas, you remember when Aliko Dangote alleged that some folks at the NNPC had set up a plant in Malta. Let's remind everyone what he said. Take a listen.
When we go ahead, we will say more. We will say more in the sense that, we know where they blend this in. Some of the terminals, some of the NNPC people, and some, traders have opened a blending plant somewhere off Malta. We all know these areas. We know what they are doing. It's not that we don't know.
Now, Mele Kyari did come out to refute that. Here is his tweet. He extensively said that, this is something that he has no knowledge of. Now, here's the thing. What happened now is that folks started digging into Nigeria's imports from Malta. And here's what was brought up. Between Business Day, Nairalytics, this is a research arm of Nairametrics, and MBS data, here's what was found. So basically, now, Malta is not much of a heavyweight when it comes to oil and gas, right? $47.5 million worth of imports in 2023 from Malta into Nigeria. Big spike to $2 billion in 2023. Peak 2015, that is before 2023, $117 million. But here's the thing, between 2017 and 2022, there were zero imports from Malta. All of a sudden, in 2023, in the second quarter in particular, you've got 181 billion naira worth of imports. Quarter three, you have 561 billion, and then quarter four, 291 billion. You add it all together, convert, you get about $2 billion worth. So, it's raised some eyebrows. Again, the NNPC has, Mele Kyari has refuted the allegation from Aliko Dangote. But when you look at those numbers, perhaps we need to get some further explanation as to why there was all of a sudden a spike in imports from Malta going into Nigeria. That's all we have today for our Monday update on the business world. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, Rotus Oddiri there with business reports in this segment of the morning show.